The data and analytics job market continues to grow at a whopping 35% in the United States, and it's the highest growth rate across any function in tech. So while software engineering is at somewhere around 20 to 25% only for specific roles within software engineering, while IT is at 15% and product management is somewhere around 15 to 20%, data and analytics job market is still at 35%. So now this growth rate is also driven by several converging trends that are shaping the demand for leaders at all levels. So first one is the massive data generation. So by 2025 alone, the global data creation is expected to reach 181 zettabytes. And that's nearly triple of what we had in 2020 already. So organizations are sitting on vast amounts of information and raw information needing for its value to be extracted. Then there's a shift towards data-driven decision making. One of the reports at McKinsey, it says that companies that are leveraging their data effectively are 23 times more likely to acquire more customers and 19 times more likely to be profitable. And of course, executives across mid-size and large companies have been increasingly realizing this, and that's driving a strong demand. And then there's this play of AI, automation, and big data adoption throughout the industry. And the global big data and analytics market is already expected to grow from $294 billion, that was in 2022, to $650 billion by 2029. So this surge is also fueling the demand, more specifically for data engineering and data architecture leaders, because for AI and all to come in, clean and structured data becomes essential to powering that. And then there are regulatory and industry compliance pressures that are going up across all industries. Not like earlier, it used to be finance and healthcare for the most part, but right now, like there's growing scrutiny for data governance and data management across other industries as well. And this has increased the demand for data governance and data management leaders. And then all of this has resulted in a talent crunch. A seeming talent crunch, pushing up the compensations and expanding opportunities for seasoned experts. But the senior leadership hiring, the hiring for those roles, still remain competitive because companies are not just hiring anyone. They're looking for someone very specific. And I'll talk to you more about that later. But all in all to say that the job security in this space remains strong. And data teams are evolving from being support functions to being some of the more rainmakers of the organization. So now let's talk about what kind of experiences are in demand. So there are a couple of those. One is a bigger challenge that a lot of companies are facing is around the data quality and governance. So it becomes a top obstacle right now. People who can come in, clean up the data, enhance the governance around the data, they are very much valued. Then there is demand for those who can break through the silos in the data organization and across like integrate data from different sources and unify and centralize it on one platform. Those are the kind of leaders that are very much valued. Then there is also a demand for a skill where people who can realize business value with data, because what had happened is like many organizations had been struggling to translate analytics investments, the investment they made on the data functions, into tangible business outcomes. So when there was all this hype, they hopped on the bandwagon that like, hey, the data is the new oil, but they didn't make the right hire. So they didn't make the right investment. So now companies are now looking for data leaders who have experience delivering clear and measurable outcomes in their past businesses. And then they also look for people who blend in. They're not just like technical expert from the data side, but they can also blend in business acumen. And for that, domain expertise become a bigger thing in demand. Like, hey, have you solved data related problems in the kind of domain or an industry that we are looking for? And that becomes a thing. And then a huge demand is also to build self-serve analytics, because like as the data volumes are growing, the complexity is going and more adoption is taking place. Data teams cannot serve every requirement, every demand. So now you're building self-serve analytics. So that becomes a big thing. And then, of course, adoption of emerging technology has been a consistent theme. So leaders are now expected to evaluate and implement new technologies like AI, machine learning, cloud platforms, advanced visualization tools to stay competitive in this market. And lastly, there's a demand for a specific kind where like, hey, you're not only building all of these things, but you're also able to drive adoption across the organization. So data advocacy and data literacy being the cornerstones of that. And then There are some differences that are across like industry wise. There are some differences that you can see, and then company size wise, there are some differences you can see. So for example, in industry, if you look at healthcare, finance, they serve huge volumes of data, but at the same time they have like regulatory demands, so those would be their priorities. Market, if you are looking for data roles in the marketing and customer insights space, then they tend to prioritize like rapid actionable insights and data storytelling, so those would be the skill sets that they would be looking for. If you talk about manufacturing and logistics space, their focus is on predictive analytics, automation, integration of various IoT devices for operational efficiency. If we look at company sizes, then large companies, they face greater complexity in integrating these legacy systems that they have. They manage their bigger pushes for like having a robust data governance and scaling analytics across business units. So they have appropriate resources, but like they are also more entrenched in silos and have resistance to change. Whereas if you look at mid-sized to small companies, they're often the struggle is with limited budgets and talent shortages. And however, they can be more agile in adoption. But their analytics leaders are more, the demand is more for people who can wear multiple hats. So with that, let's talk about what kind of skills and experiences are dying and why. So one of the things is, of course, people are looking for domain experts. So if you are hopping on different domains, like if you do not have a clear expertise in one particular domain, that is not a thing that everybody is considering in the market. So that is playing as a detriment to you. The other one, if you're going for leadership roles in the data space, purely technical backgrounds without business acumen, they are also not prioritized. They want people who can also explain to the senior leadership what they are doing. Also, there's a big focus on people who are more transformational. So if you're more like a, operational in nature in this space, so like people who had only focused on tactical operational tasks like code refinement, technical improvement, so there were incremental improvements rather than like them using the data organization to drive business transformation, then those guys are taking the hit. Above all, if you have been in a stagnant environment, generally speaking, you will be deemed undesirable by the industry, and the lack of desire only increases for you the longer you stay in a stagnant role. Because like, of course, you're not seen as like working on evolving tech, or you're not seen as like somebody who's like actually driving value. So that's the problem. So speaking of typical timelines for like how long does it take for data leaders to get hired? So on average, it is taking 3 to 4 months for our clients to land a role at director level. Average for other functions at this level is like 6 to 8 months in the market. So compare that. So like the timelines are more accelerated. At VP levels, these timelines are stretched at like 5 to 6 months to land a role. But a typical VP level in other functions takes around like 8 to 12 months. So still better. That is to say, like the hiring times for data analytics leaders are quicker compared to other tech functions. The time to first interviews are relatively faster too, with our clients landing their first interviews within 2 weeks of making their first applications. But I would also say that like these results are not industry typical. These are the results of our clients. The industry picture tells a rather more grim story. Our clients' results are more attributed to our speed and effectiveness of our marketing that we deploy for them. But still, the number of places one of our clients would have to interview before they get an offer is averaging around 10. So like you got to interview at 10 different places before you get an offer. So that is to say that even then, a lot of scrutiny takes place both before you get a chance for an interview and during the interview, where further more scrutiny increases closer you get to the offer. Another question that we keep getting asked is like, that are data leaders being internally promoted or are they being poached? Well, with the growing needs of and the number of organizations with needs of like data and analytics leaders, it's only necessary for the companies to look outside. The short answer is yes, a likely chance would be that they would promote internally, but if not, then they would look outside. But if they can promote internally to fill positions fast enough, the companies would. Also, companies with strong cultures of development and growth are more likely to promote within, leveraging data leaders like who already understand the organizational culture and objectives. But sometimes you need new perspectives, you need advanced technical expertise, you need experience with large-scale transformation that is crucial for the organization. If that kind of talent is not available internally, then you have to look outside, and that's where like external hires are being hired. So they want to promote emphasis on internal mobility, so promoting within. But when they cannot do it, they look for external hires. But whenever they do look for external hires, they would then look for somebody who's very specific. Like they want somebody who can be as close as someone who was internal to their organization. That's where like the domain expertise matters, and like that's where like what you have been doing, the nature of problems you have been solving, and the environment you have been in matters a lot. Now there's a paradox here that like the data analytics job market is growing, but also at the same time the competition is very fierce. So not only that there are like immediate job seekers where like because of the recent layoffs and everything, but also there's a huge pool of aspirational candidates already employed but open to the right offer. So there was a report coming from like topresume.io, that is a website that ran a survey, and it found out like more than 70% of the people who are currently employed are still considering a new job. And we talk to like thousands of data leaders every year, and we can confirm this finding that like it's rampant. Everybody's looking for a job change, and that brings in a significant amount of competition. And if you like to know like how significant is that competition, if you're talking numbers, then in the United States market alone, these are people who are just my third degree connection. At senior manager and director levels, there are 190,000 data leaders. At VP level, there are 68,000 data leaders. So all in all, roughly around 250,000 data leaders, leadership roles. Now imagine if just 10% of them are employed, not even 70%, just 10% of them are applying for the same kind of roles. Then there are 25,000 qualified people chasing the same opportunities. And that's why this happens, is like what you see is the moment a job is posted, you can see already thousands of candidates applying, like hundreds of applying within the same day. And so that is to say, I would still say like, yes, most of these people who apply to these postings are not fully qualified, but no, it won't stop them from drowning you out in the noise. So you need something that makes you stand out. And that is to say like, and this is where like standing out is a big problem for data leaders, because a lot of the time when we talk to them, when they go into the market, they go in with the approach that like, hey, well, data is just data. If I can do X here, I can also do Y here. But when you look into the job market, in all seriousness, data isn't just data. And don't get me wrong, I'm not a data expert, but I'm simply saying this by observing hiring patterns of over thousands of jobs that we have shot for last year and hundreds of interviews we landed for our senior leadership candidates in the data field alone. And the pattern prior to working with us, like what we had seen with them is like they would always position themselves as, hey, I'm this data strategist, I do all things data. And they try to put a catch-all narrative on their resumes, on their LinkedIn profiles, and interview introductions, on networking messages, wherever they would be. The thought is that if I cast a wide enough net, then I would catch something. And the problem is that the companies are looking for specifics. And with the like such a huge amount of talent being available in the market, companies can literally cherry pick who they wanted to interview. And thus the strategy to win this game is not by casting a wide enough net, but instead to niche out. And this is exactly like how we cracked the code when we looked at those data leaders who were not getting interviews before, and then we deployed our approach on that. Here's what happened. So one of our recent director level placements that we did, they landed 50 interviews and 5 offers working with us, 50 interviews at 50 different places working with us. 2 of our clients made it to the final rounds for VP level role where there were already 3,000 candidates that had applied. And that's 2 of our clients. Now, every week, and we see this play out every week, like multiple of our clients are in the interviews for the same leadership roles. That is to say, like if all of the people are applying, at least 2 of our clients are sitting in there because like something is working for them to get the interview. We also quite commonly keep seeing that like people who were getting ghosted before, they start getting callbacks after they put in our process. And an average director level data leader gets around 2 to 3 interviews per week working with us. So that is to say, what I'm trying to say is like, we know this stuff works. And so it's not just like we just think that this should work. It's already proven and tested. And if you follow exactly what I'm about to show you, you wouldn't have to worry about getting the interviews. The bigger problem would be like, when do you schedule them? So we have found like 5 positioning levers that all data leaders can make their marketing stand out. And so the very first lever that you want to pull is, what data discipline are you primarily an expert at? So this could be like, whether you are a data engineering leader, are you more focused on data science and data analytics? Are you more focused on reporting and BI? Are you more data management and data governance leader? Are you more data architecture leader? What would be the crucial thing that we would be defining your data leadership around? Because as obvious as they may sound, many people don't make that distinction, or like don't make it so evident in their marketing. And when the recruiter only has like a few seconds to discern whether you are a fit among thousands of other applicants, these little things play significantly. Besides, if you were heavily involved in data platform building side of the house, companies that are looking for more predictive analytics and model development, they might not consider you, because at senior leadership level, they don't hire you so you can grow and you can learn something new. They hire you so you can grow their business. And they want you for the skills and expertise you already have. So it's important to kind of define what you already have and then go after those roles. The second lever you can pull is, what key effort have you primarily been driving in your past roles? So you can think of it as like, hey, perhaps you were modernizing a data platform or moving the data domains to a cloud-based data platform, or perhaps you established an in-house data science practice, or maybe you centralized disparate sources of data into a unified platform, or maybe you were catalyst for driving data use across the large organization and enable data-driven decision making across like functions that didn't even know like, hey, how we can collect and use our data. Or maybe you were involved in re-architecting a data platform. You get the idea. So basically there would be some key things that you were already have been doing in your recent past, and you perhaps have driven a significant change in your data organization. So you want to think about like, hey, what specifically did I do? And in that, like, how did it measurably help the organization? And presenting these initiatives with clear key results and along with clarity of what you do will help recruiters and hiring managers identify you for better and for their specific cases. The third lever I want to talk about is like, what functions of the business did you help with? And here a few examples are like, maybe you were involved in the marketing analytics. So maybe you were an expert at like media mix modeling, customer retention, marketing attribution, experimentation, what have you. So those would be a very different use case, and those would be very different kind of data you'd be handling versus like if you were on the supply chain side of the thing. So there's more like demand forecasting kind of work, inventory optimization kind of work that's going on. Or in the sales side, there's more customer segmentation or churn prediction models. Maybe you were on customer service side, so you were implementing AI chatbots, call volume prediction engines, so on and so forth. So these use cases are important in understanding your domain expertise, and the higher up the ladder you go, the more business focused your role becomes. So at that point, if you can clearly call out your domain expertise, it gives the hiring manager a subconscious vote of confidence that you are the right kind of candidate. And in continuation with your domain expertise, you also want something to consider is like, what kind of industries are you most familiar with? Because different industries have their own different complexities on how they handle data. And because of this, they look for industry specific experience. Again, it feeds into the idea that senior technology leaders are in fact business leaders. So you must understand the business first. So a few examples of how nuances of data challenges differ by industries are perhaps like, if you take healthcare, the challenge there is data privacy and personal identifiable information, security, regulatory compliances like HIPAA, high trust, integrating data from disparate sources, so on and so forth. Interoperability is also a bigger challenge. But as a financial side, there would be regulatory compliances and high transaction data volume, fraud and risk detection models, so on and so forth. Manufacturing, there would be supply chain complexities, predictive maintenance type use cases. Telecom, again, network data analysis, predicting call volumes, or customer support related. Again, there's industry-wise, there would be nuances. So if someone can identify the industry that you're coming from and in the roles that you apply to, the industries that you have expertise in, then you'd have much higher negotiating leverage if you're getting into the same domain again. And lastly, you want to think in terms of where you stand in terms of the level of maturity in the data organization. So here you want to think about like different companies operate at different stages in their data journey. So some are more in the initial stages, getting their data in one place, clean and organized, and start more data-driven decision making. Some are improving the quality of their analytical models, exploring new areas for use cases. Others are more heavily using data, looking to scale and mature their data platforms, have more robust governance, and perhaps even re-architected for data availability and efficiency. And while some companies may be really advanced, moving beyond to implement more AI in a lot of the use cases. So each stage presents a unique challenge and in effect requires a specific kind of leader to help navigate those. So they are looking for leaders who have already made the mistakes and learned from them in their particular journey so they can successfully drive the outcomes that align with the business needs. So it would be much helpful that you'd be much better off finding organizations that are seeking the level of maturity you can help drive. So that is to say, let me give you an example. So here on this page, what you're looking at is a representative branding for one of the data leaders. So it's just like a career summary of one of the data leaders, where we're combining all of those niching elements I just talked about. And this particular data leader, I've taken this like the niche or like what they're doing. If you just read through the summary, is so abundantly clear that this actually performed really well. This is the resume that ended up bagging like 50 interviews and 5 offers in just 8 months of working with us. And so if I had this profile, right? And let's just say I'm the hiring manager. If I come across this profile, and if I'm the hiring manager and I'm looking to pick folks who have, and let me start putting filters in there. So I want somebody who has retail industry experience. I want somebody who is building data platforms on Google Cloud. I want somebody who has experience creating a customer data platform. And I want somebody who has experience driving some use cases. So let me show you by putting these filters. And when I put these filters, so I have a very specific requirement, you can see like how the search narrows down from 250,000 candidates that we earlier thought to just 20 results. And that's the beauty of it. And so if you happen to be that data leader who has all of those things and they are clearly called out, then you would be my first pick. So as you can see, marketing yourself effectively can instantly make you stand out from the crowd, but that's just the first step. If you are a fit, well, then get in touch with the hiring manager as well, as directly as possible and as quickly as possible, because that's the single most highest leverage thing that you can do in your job search. And hiring managers want to hear from you if you are a fit. And to make things easier, I have added some free resources in the description where I talk about like, hey, how to write an executive resume. So how you can build out that branding for yourself using the elements and the levers that I just talked about. And then how do you find and contact hiring managers for any role? So even if it's a hidden role, I've shown some tactics to figure out who the hiring managers is. And then once you have found the hiring managers, well, then what do you write to them that gets your foot in the door with them, that makes them want to have an interview conversation with you? And then I would say on a closing note that even like we do put out a lot of content just to help everyone out for free as well. But we see that like most tech leaders struggle to land interviews because of two main reasons. One is that they lack the bandwidth to go full strength in their job search. And then, of course, they also lack the know-how on how to market themselves. And that's exactly where our company, Wolf Mentoring, that helps. We offer a complete done-for-you service for all of your job search efforts, where we will position you as an expert in a narrow market, just like I just described. We'll create your resume, your LinkedIn profile. We'll find and apply for the right roles for you on your behalf. We'll also find out who the hiring managers are and what their contact details is. We'll research the role, about what they're looking to hear from you, and then we'll build out a compelling email to the hiring managers. We manage all of that process. We offer you interview prep and work with you all the way until negotiation conversations and until you sign the offer. So that is to say, ours would be a complete one-stop shop for your job search needs in a done-for-you fashion. Hope that helps. And then that said, all the best.